Getting the structure right of an organisation such as a community foundation is very important, because there are taxation and legal requirements that need to be covered off.
For the Victorian Government, when we did fund them, and we don't anymore, but when we did, we looked that they had a proper constitutional structure, that they were incorporated entities, and they needed to be eligible for tax concessions from the federal government. That means they needed to be registered charities with deductible gift recipient status.
Sometimes it's forgotten that the liability and responsibilities for directors in not-for-profit organisations are the same as those in private organisations.
You know, you are handling other people's money, so you do need to have a competent board and competent processes to handle money and be accountable for that.
A lot of organisations actually want to have their own foundations, but of course there's a lot of governance issues and expense involved in running them, and unless you get to a critical mass, they actually don't work particularly well.
So we have a program with local councils that if they want to set up, rather than setting up their own foundation, they can set up a community fund with us. And we have, I think, 9 councils now with funds with us, and talking to a couple more.
I guess what it means to be a sub-fund of the Lord Mayor's Charitable Fund is that basically we get the guidance, we get the actual management, and we get the skills and expertise.
You're not having to decide where your money is invested. All the money is actually invested by the Lord Mayor's, makes it a lot easier. So you're only having to really have an administrative officer to oversee the runnings of things, but not the actual investment of the funds.
All the work of the committee members is really just working out strategies for bringing money in and finding worthy grant recipient organisations and projects.
There are people in community who want to give money to a particular activity.
There are at least 3 different types of examples of people wanting to do constructive things with money and finding that the foundation's an appropriate place to do it.
Here is a place to which we can all contribute our $50, our $5,000, at the sale of our house when we die, or etc. Here is a way that we can contribute in perpetuity to this community, and the sub-fund guarantees that from here on in the monies will be used in this particular way.
One example is the Koroit sub-fund. They had a situation where their local nursing home was closing down. The community felt it was losing support in that way, and so the board of the nursing home decided that the proceeds from the winding up of their operations should become a sub-fund for their community. So the Koroit sub-fund was established, and that will be providing grants specifically into that community.
Our family chose to have a named fund within the foundation because we felt it was the best way that our family, which has a very long-term business, which has been running in Geelong since 1854, was the best way that we could give back to the community on a long-term basis.
Yes, we decided to operate without an exec officer. We had an executive officer in the first couple of years, and that was probably important during some of that formative time, but felt that with a small fund that it was too big a drag on our resources.
All of our board members work and are extremely busy people, and so to keep continually drawing on them to make basic office admin operations happen would become exceptionally difficult. So we have had an EO from the start, and I tell you, we couldn't operate without one.
We've got great staff. We've got 1 staff person at the minute and another spot for someone else, and that's a privilege for community foundations starting up. It's not easy to get that money in the beginning.
Being a sub-fund of the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, we don't have a board, so we have 2 levels of committees, I guess you'd say.
I don't chair a board meeting, but I am involved in chairing with staff members or sharing that role on 2 committees, the fundraising committee and the events committee.
We did get have a look at community foundations around the world actually to try and find out what were the indicators of lasting sustainability. And we concluded that one way in which we could be fairly confident was if the local council in some way supported the foundation.
One of the good things about council is that we've got a great network that we can draw on, and we've got a community engagement team. We've got teams of procurement and what have you that do have great relationships with bigger companies.
We are just gifted just with a wonderful set of premises to actually just meet at. We actually have the support of the actual local staff, which is invaluable, especially as volunteers. It's a really powerful relationship and something that can't ever be underestimated.
Being prepared for a decade of building relationships and partnerships and profile within the region and external to the region, and attracting the funds that builds a corpus that allows you to have the funds to start to grant out. There's a very, very long time frame, and it requires an enormous amount of commitment from a core group of people that are constantly having to build the relationships, sell the story and govern the organisation.